The beeping was already there when I came back to myself, that steady, mechanical rhythm that doesn't care who you are or what you've left undone. I didn't know where I was at first. The ceiling was white. There was a smell I recognized but couldn't place. Antiseptic, maybe, or something colder than that. Then I tried to move my left hand and felt the IV line pull against my skin, and I understood hospital. I was in a hospital. I closed my eyes again. I thought, someone called my son. He'll be here soon. That thought got me through the next few minutes. The nurse came in and checked the monitor above my head. She had kind eyes, the kind that have seen too much to be surprised by anything. She told me I'd collapsed at the grocery store. She said my heart had gone into a dangerous rhythm and they'd had to act fast. She said the paramedics had done everything right. She also said they'd been trying to reach my emergency contact for going on 6 hours. I asked her to say that again. She did. 6 hours. My son was my emergency contact, had been for years. I'd put his name and number on every form I'd ever filled out at every doctor's office since his father passed. It was just the two of us now. That's what I always told people. Just the two of us now, but we're close. He's a good son. The nurse told me gently that they'd called him 16 times. They'd left voicemails. They'd tried texting the number on file. She said a colleague had even tried calling from a personal phone in case he was screening hospital numbers. 16 times. I looked at the ceiling again. I thought about the chicken I'd left defrosting on the kitchen counter. I thought about the most mundane things. The library book I had overdue. Whether I'd locked the back door. You do that when something is too large to look at directly. You look around it. Is there anyone else we can call? She asked. I gave her my neighbor's number, Willa. She's 71, lives 3 houses down, and she's been bringing me tomatoes from her garden every August for the past 9 years. We're not family. We've never pretended to be. But she's the one who noticed when my car didn't move for 2 days after my husband died. She's the one who knocked. Willa was there within 40 minutes. She walked in holding her purse with both hands the way she does when she's worried, and when she saw me, she let out a breath like she'd been holding it the whole drive over. "Oh, Rosemary," she said. "That's me. 67 years old, retired school librarian, resident of the same house in Glendale, Arizona for 31 years. I raised my son in that house, taught him to ride a bike in that driveway, sat with him at that kitchen table through homework and heartbreak, and the night his father's test results came back wrong. I loved that boy with everything I had. I still do. That's the part that doesn't make any of this easier. His name is Kevin. He's 41, lives about 20 minutes from me with his wife Danielle and their 2 kids. We used to see each other every couple of weeks. Dinner usually. Sometimes I'd babysit. It was comfortable, normal, the kind of relationship I thought we had. Things had gotten quieter in the last year or so. I noticed it, but I told myself it was just life. Kids get busy, jobs get demanding. I didn't want to be the mother who hovered, who called too much, who made her son feel guilty for living his own life. So I gave him space. I gave him so much space, apparently, that he didn't feel the need to answer his phone for the better part of a day while I was lying in a cardiac care unit. By the time they told me it had been 22 calls, they kept trying. Those nurses, they really did. I had stopped counting. I just lay there while Willa held my hand and read me the local news from her phone because she didn't know what else to do, and I let her because I didn't know what else to ask for. I was in the hospital for 4 days. He called on day 3. I was asleep when it happened. Willa was there. She'd been coming every morning and staying through lunch, and she answered my phone because she thought it might be my doctor's office returning a call. She told me later that when she said hello, there was a pause. Then Kevin asked if this was his mother's phone. Willa said yes. Kevin said he'd been meaning to call. Willa, to her credit, kept her voice perfectly even. She told him I'd had a cardiac event, that I'd been hospitalized, that I was stable but recovering. She told him which hospital, which floor, which room number. He said he'd try to come by. He did not come by. I found out later, not from him, that he and Danielle had taken the kids to Sedona for a long weekend. They'd driven up Friday morning. That's why he didn't answer. He'd put his phone on Do Not Disturb because, as he explained to me weeks later, Danielle wanted them all to be present on the trip. No screens, no distractions. I don't know why I keep coming back to that word. Present, because the word I would use for what I needed him to be on that Saturday morning when I was being loaded into an ambulance outside the frozen food aisle was not present on a hiking trail in Sedona. I needed him present in the way that mattered. But he was taking photos of the red rocks. I know because Danielle posted them. I saw them when I finally got my phone back and made the mistake of opening Instagram. There they were, all four of them, grinning in the golden hour light. The caption said, "Sometimes you just need to unplug and be with your people." I put my phone down on the hospital blanket. I looked out the window at the parking garage across the street. I didn't say anything to Willa about it. I didn't say anything to anyone. I just let it sit there inside me, that caption, and I thought about the chicken on my counter that had probably gone bad by now, and I thought about the 31 years I'd spent in a house I bought partly so Kevin would always have a home to come back to. And I decided right then, very quietly, that I was done being afraid of being a burden. I want to explain something about Willa because she matters to this story in a way I didn't expect. We have coffee on Tuesday mornings. That's the extent of what we'd ever planned. She comes over at 9, I make a pot, we sit at the kitchen table and talk about whatever needs talking about. Her late husband, my garden, the new family that moved in at the end of the block. Small things, real things. She brought me home from the hospital. She drove me herself in her 2019 Camry with the air freshener shaped like a pine tree, and she talked the whole way about a documentary she'd been watching about national parks so that I wouldn't have to talk at all. When we got to my house, she helped me inside, heated up some soup she'd apparently left in my refrigerator at some point during the week, and sat with me until I told her I wanted to sleep. Before she left, she said, "You don't have to explain anything to me. You don't have to figure it out today. Just rest." That was it. No questions, no opinions about Kevin, no advice I hadn't asked for. I cried after she left, not about the heart thing, about the soup. It's strange what gets you. I'd been through a cardiac event, 4 days in the hospital, the slow, horrible understanding that my son had looked at his phone and made a choice. And what made me cry was a container of chicken noodle soup left quietly in my refrigerator by a woman who gardens too much and watches too many documentaries and has never once made me feel like a problem to be managed. Kevin came to see me 11 days after I got home. He brought flowers, the grocery store kind, already starting to droop, and he sat across from me at the kitchen table with his hands folded and gave me an apology that sounded like it had been workshopped with Danielle beforehand. He said he hadn't realized how serious it was. He said he felt terrible. He said the trip had been planned for months. I nodded. I made him coffee. I did not tell him about the Instagram post. He stayed for about an hour. Before he left, he hugged me and I hugged him back, and when the door closed behind him, I stood in my entryway for a long moment and thought, I used to know this person. I'm not sure when that changed. I'm not sure it matters anymore. 3 weeks after I came home, I had a follow-up appointment with my cardiologist. Everything looked stable. He told me I'd need to take it easy, reduce stress where I could, keep up with my medication. He said stress, at my age, with my particular cardiac history, was not something to take lightly. I drove home and sat in my car in the driveway for a few minutes. I thought about what he'd said. I thought about the house. My husband and I had bought this place in 1993 for $187,000. That was a stretch for us then. We'd saved for 4 years for the down payment. The neighborhood had changed over the decades. More development, different families cycling through, but the house itself had stayed ours. We'd paid it off 8 years ago. When he died, I'd thought about selling, but I couldn't do it. Too many rooms full of too many things. It was worth somewhere around $390,000 now, maybe a little more. I'd had it appraised the previous year, just to know. I had always assumed Kevin would be in my will. Of course he would. He was my son. That's how it works. You spend your whole life building something, and then you pass it on to the people who come after you. I'd never even thought to question it. I sat in my car, and I thought about it now. Then I went inside and called my attorney. Her name is Beverly. No, wait. I'm not going to use her real name. Let's just say she's been my attorney for 12 years, and she is exactly the kind of woman you want in your corner when you finally decide to stop being in someone else's corner. She's in her 50s, no nonsense, and she has a way of listening without expression that used to make me nervous and now makes me feel very, very safe. I told her what had happened. All of it. The hospital, the calls, the Sedona trip, the Instagram caption, the drooping flowers, the workshopped apology. I told her about Willa and the soup. I told her what my cardiologist had said about stress. She listened to all of it, and then she said, "What would you like to do?" I told her. She didn't blink. She just nodded and started taking notes. I want to be clear about something. I didn't do what I did out of spite. I've thought about this a lot because it's the kind of thing people assume that a woman who changes her will after a hard experience is acting from anger, from wound, from some temporary emotional state she'll regret once she's calmed down. I was calm. That's what I need you to understand. I was the calmest I'd been in years. I think what happened in that hospital, lying there with the IV in my hand and the ceiling above me, and nobody I'd named on any form actually showing up, I think what happened was that I finally saw things clearly. Not bitterly. Clearly. Kevin loves me the way you love something you've always assumed would be there. The way you love a piece of furniture that's always been in a certain corner of the room. You don't think about it. You don't worry about it. You just expect it to continue existing in the place you left it. I had spent years trying to be low maintenance enough that he'd choose to be close to me anyway. I'd told myself that was generosity. It wasn't. It was fear. Fear that if I needed too much, he'd pull further away. And the terrible irony is that I needed something real. Not much, just a returned phone call, just a presence, and the thing I'd been afraid of happened anyway. So I stopped being afraid. I updated my will in October. The house and most of what's in it goes to Willa now. There's a small amount set aside for Kevin, enough to know I thought of him, not enough to suggest I forgot what happened. My attorney drafted it carefully. It's all legal. It's all done. I haven't told Kevin. I don't plan to. I've thought about whether that's right. Whether he deserves to know, whether keeping it from him is its own kind of cruelty. I've gone back and forth on it more than I'll admit. But here's where I've landed. I'm not doing this to punish him. I'm doing it because, for the first time in a long time, I'm making a decision based on what I actually believe rather than what I'm afraid of. And what I believe is that the people who show up for you when it costs them something deserve more than the people who show up when it's convenient. Willa didn't have to come to that hospital. She had no obligation. She just heard the word hospital and got in her car. That's the whole of it, really. Kevin called me in December to ask if I'd be coming to Christmas at his house. Danielle was cooking. The kids were excited. It was going to be the whole family, he said, and he hoped I'd join them. I said I'd think about it. He said, "Mom, you know we love you." I looked out my kitchen window at Willa's house across the way. There was a wreath on her door, a plain green one she'd had for years. Her lights came on at the same time every evening, a little before 5. "I know you do," I said. And I meant it. I do believe he loves me in the way he's capable of loving someone. I'm not angry at him anymore. I was for a little while, and I let myself feel that because it was true, and then I let it go because holding it was hurting nobody but me. I went to Christmas dinner. I brought a pie. I sat at their table and watched my grandchildren open their presents, and I thought about my husband and how much he would have loved to see them. I drove home at 9 o'clock and called Willa to wish her a Merry Christmas because she'd spent it with her daughter in Phoenix, and I wanted to hear her voice. We talked for almost an hour, mostly about nothing. Her daughter's new apartment, a book she'd been reading, whether it was worth planting garlic this late in the season. Before she hung up, she said, "I'm glad you're still here, Rosemary. I thought about that hospital ceiling, the beeping, the 6 hours, the 22 calls." "Me too," I said. "Me too. The will is already signed. It's already filed. And for the first time in longer than I can remember, I sleep through the night."